Welcome back to another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. I'm your host, Howard Holton, and I'm here with Ryan from DTEX. Ryan, how's it going today?
It is going very well. Thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
How are you enjoying our winter holiday camp with 90,000 of our best friends here at reInvent?
Well, 90,000 is even more than I thought, but it's
the last number I heard.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's the thing we'll take away. But it's been insightful, and I think the value I get is kind of the individual connections that you get to make. I've been in the kind of remote work from home side of the world for a number of years now, so I do very much value the opportunity to get in front of people, just meet new people, kind of reconnect with old people, old friends that I've met over the years, and just kind of build the relationships, because it makes a difference.
Yeah, makes a huge difference. I mean, we are social creatures.
Indeed.
Right? Humans are tribal. We are social. You can trace most of our modern societal problems to the lack of feeling connected in communities and tribes.
Indeed, that's an entirely different, interesting topic.
Yeah. I don't want to pull us off on something different, but
but it's interesting, and that's as we look at technology on one hand, just looking at the remote world, everything that happened during COVID, and we're seeing the pendulum shift back to kind of return to office mandates, get back in the office. But it was this strange thing that I really enjoyed with Zoom, where we were like more easily able to connect, but it was like an 80% connection with people. It was humanizing in a strange way, because all of a sudden, like people were on camera in their living room, and like there'd be a kid in the background, or a cat would walk across the keyboard or something like that, which was, okay, this is just another real human that I'm talking to.
And like 3 months before, if a kid walked behind your background in Zoom, it was like, no, you got to come in the office. It's not professional.
Exactly.
Right? Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, what a cute kid. Tell me about your kid. And you're like sure. Or, oh, look, bring the dog back. The dogs tend to hang out in my office in the morning. So if I'm recording in the morning, I have dogs in there. Yeah. And there have been times where they're like, yeah, I don't want to even ask you more questions. I just want you to bring the dogs back because I want to see the dogs. They're cute. Yeah. Right? And you're like, oh, well. Sure.
Is that why we're here? So we can hang out with my dog on Zoom?
Right. Yeah. It's fine. I'll get up. I'll let them take the chair. It's fine. I could use a break.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. So, I mean, back to your original question, how am I enjoying it? It's been great. Walked a lot, so it's probably a little better for my health than sitting at the desk all day. But no, insightful, lots of new insights, and kind of walking away with a lot of kind of new and expanded thoughts on, artificial intelligence has been the topic of the day everywhere. Everything you read in tech news.
I haven't run across it yet. That sounds
weird.
Haven't?
It's artificial. Yeah, it's intelligent, but it's not human. Yeah. It's it was funny kind of coming into this, and I have my own bit of fatigue sometimes, just reading about it all the time. But the pace of change has been pretty staggering.
Yeah, it's impressive.
And I think we're identifying a lot of pros. I don't know that all of the kind of cons and risks have been fully thought out, which will be another interesting element to kind of unpack and watch for, especially from a security lens. That's one of the ones that I really am keen on.
But I think AI also changes. Like, we are great at picking the thing that we like and then focusing on that thing, almost to the exclusion of other things.
Yeah.
Right, just like it's a thing humans do. Oh, this is a neat itch. I'm going to scratch that itch and ignore everything else. And the reality is, it should have been not security, but GRCS, governance, risk, compliance, and security. And we kind of went, yeah, but security's the fun one. I want to do security, and I can be a little bit cowboy, and I don't have to focus on people. And all the other ones involve a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I think what AI has done is said, well, yes, there is still an S, and it benefits both sides of the S. Those that really pay attention to governance, risk, and compliance are going to, I think, have a better place in AI. AI opens a enormous governance and risk kind of black hole that you really do need to start getting your arms wrapped around, or the risk is you're going to make mistakes that cost you a lot. You're going to effectively generate cybersecurity incident level risk inside your organization by ignoring it.
So I guess when you're articulating it like that, it's really leverage. Fundamentally, like financial leverage, you lever up, invest $1, but borrow 10, so you invest 10, amplify your returns. Same thing with productivity gains. I can have one person and who knows how is very good at using generative AI. They can do the work of 3, maybe. I don't know. And who knows what it'll be 6 months from now?
Sure.
Right. But yeah, that effect is equally compounding, kind of on the back end of it. It's interesting looking at the different solutions that have come out. Like if you're within one ecosystem, one Gen AI, one model, a little easier to govern, but how do you make a choice of which one to use, who's going to use which one, and force that?
You also can't choose.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say that you say, we're using OpenAI, we're using ChatGPT, whatever, right? We're going to use the 4.0 model. Mm-hmm. That is our corporate standard. But Microsoft's not going to use that one, and that's going to be integrated. SAP's not going to use that one, and it's going to be integrated. Oracle's not going to use that one, and it's going to be integrated. Salesforce is not going to, you know what I mean? Like all the applications that you use will also have AI integrated into them, and you don't necessarily get to choose the model, and you don't necessarily get to choose the training. You don't get to choose how the vector database is put together and the RAG is put together, right? Personally, I think that's the big danger.
Yeah.
Right? We are already so poorly defining things inside our organization. If I ask my ERP, let's just say the Gen AI is perfect inside the ERP, but I ask my ERP, how many sales did I have in North America in 2024? It's going to give me a number. If I ask Salesforce, how many sales did I have in North America in 2024, unless I have defined sale, North America, and what I mean by 2024, do I mean calendar or fiscal? The same way that I did inside my ERP, it is entirely likely I'm going to get very different results, and I may not know, which one's right, right? And compound that by 5,000 applications inside your average enterprise, with 500 AIs running, and you don't have the choice to pick one AI. It'd be nice if you could, but.
Oh, and kind of the talk around agentic AI to me seems to like kind of further compound that problem as it has decisioning. What else is it going to reach into? What is it going to touch to? What else is it going to touch? So I don't even know. You call that like a shadow application?
Sure. But agentic, like the efficacy inside agentic is at one level when it's agents based on the same model, and it is on a completely different level when those agents are cross-model.
No.
Right? If I build an agent where I go, well, ChatGPT has the best intent. I haven't said I've measured that they actually do this. I'm just using examples, right?
Yeah.
So like ChatGPT has the best intent management, so it understands my prompt best. So I'm going to start with ChatGPT. I'm going to feed the results into Perplexity because I want it to do the research, and then I want it to build a narrative with Claude, and then I want it to do fact checking again with Perplexity. Right? The efficacy of that is far greater than if I go ChatGPT to then a research ChatGPT to then a narrative ChatGPT and then back to a fact check GPT. Mm-hmm. Right? The efficacy is much better as I'm able to switch models to do things. And if I have a code gen GPT, mm-hmm. and then I send that to a security supply chain GPT, and I send that to a code security GPT, those are not likely to be the same models at all, right? So it really exacerbates that same issue because I may execute one query and have 9 different models that it goes through. I don't necessarily, and I need to be able to swap those models out for what's the most effective and efficient for me at the time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's a moving target as like things continue to change. So that sequence of 9 that you have now. Okay, let's have governance policies around this. That probably is good for about a month, at least at today's pace.
I think that's generous.
Yeah. No, at least from a what we'll enforce, and then the wheels will start to fall off the second you figure out a deployment. How fast we could test them
is probably a month. I think that's probably reasonable, right? Because there still should be testing. You shouldn't just blindly swap those things out, right? You need to do some A/B efficacy testing and compliance testing and governance testing and test for hallucinations and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but well, just continuing your explorers though. So how much of that then is analogous to just even, I'm thinking back from like my software days where, when I was coding, it was C++, right? By today's standards, that's incredibly low language. I might as well be writing
in assembly.
Yeah, might as well be writing in assembly. It's a step above that. But we have these additional layers of abstraction that have been built on the modern tech stack, which, look at like the whole conversation about S-bombs and software supply chain, like some of the big breaches of the last few years is, that was well below the application layer, like in a service layer that was built a long time ago. And it's interesting to think about as we're talking about this Gen AI application, especially maybe agentic, and they can direct themselves to whatever validation makes the most sense at the time. It's a flywheel.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is.
And I'm driving myself to my own conclusion in this conversation.
But it adds so much complexity that you kind of like. You kind of have to go, how much of this can I take in and understand, and then let Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at some point, perfection is the enemy of progress. You must make progress, right? So how do you learn enough to gain enough confidence that you know enough that you can make a decision that isn't just a risk decision but has a reward in it as well? It's a hard one, right?
Question. Yeah, no, it's a really hard one. I'm thinking about, a conversation I had recently is how do you, what's this conversation going to look like in 12 to 24 months? And I wouldn't say a bet. I think the consensus is no one really knows because it's changing so fast, but we'll have a much more clear understanding of kind of the risks, pitfalls, limitations, but then also the guardrails that we can put in place. But if you have something as that's going to move as quickly on its own and evolve so quickly that like human governance can't solve it, you'd almost have this weird paradoxical situation where you then have to look to AI to kind of help facilitate the governance. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you absolutely are, right? For I think pace is going to drive you there, but I also think you have to stop expecting to be current, right? Like you're not going to be able to leverage the number of organizations that can leverage to the full potential of the AI models as they exist today in early December of 2024 are near enough zero to be rounded to zero.
Sure.
Right? So if I can't leverage fully the value of the AI model as it is today, what makes me think I'm going to be able to do it to the version in January or February or March or April or first week of May or third day of April as they, June as they get faster and faster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so again, I kind of need to go like, what can I reasonably do? What can I reasonably manage? What can I,
Well, no, you touched on something, and this is going to kind of bring out a little bit of the cynic in me on the AI topic. Is, oftentimes technology, it's exciting, it's new, there's like limitless potential. Let's build, innovate. It's going to be disruptive. Right? This is where the product person in me comes out, and it's like, let's take a step back. What are the problems that we need to solve, right? And let's focus on, one, identifying and truly understanding those problems that we need to solve, and then is there a place for Gen AI in solving those problems? Once those are solved, do they need to be solved better, or are they solved sufficiently well? So that gets you to that. Okay, we don't need to keep pushing the envelope. We've done what we need to do, and I think the focus on those problems is what will ultimately push kind of the boundary on what the technology is capable of doing.
You would hope. I wish we worked that way.
Yeah, we don't.
we really don't. However, you bring up a really good point, which is if you don't start with the right question, no application of technology is going to help you. Right? If you can't define the problem, if you can't define the challenge and really box it in and everyone agree on it, then technology is not going to solve the problem. If you're just looking for my company needs to use AI because we've decided we need to use AI, and therefore give me an AI nail I can hammer, you're going to be in trouble, right? And truly, the number of problems that require AI, truly require AI, is reasonably small, right? And AI is the most expensive way to solve any problem.
Yeah. So
ish, you know, like
yeah. I mean, the cost profile is changing as quick as the innovation, right? But it is very much that narrow the scope of the problem that we need. Like, one conversation was, so I was talking to someone, a product leader, who was like, "Hey, I've got a co-pilot, not including a specific part of it, but a agentic co-pilot that is able to write fantastic requirement documents that I can then put into another model that then is spitting out the code." It's like, and it's that's very compelling. What are the if you peel back the layers of that, there's efficiency gains, there's productivity gains, and I think that's the general promise we're all going for, but there's still kind of human intuition and cognition that's still very relevant. If we start talking 10, 20 years and kind of imagining what that world looks like, start to think about
it's
young kids today, that's a whole nother
Yeah, it's Star Trek or Idiocracy.
Yeah.
It's Star Trek or Idiocracy. There's no third option. Right? But let's spend a minute on what you were just talking about, right? Where we're adding efficiency, we're adding volume, right? I'm reminded of two things. The first is I did a lot of big data consulting, right? To which volume, velocity, variety, right, are the three V's of big data.
Yeah.
My argument was the only one that actually mattered as a trigger point, as an inflection point, was variety. Right? We didn't create big data platforms because our Oracle database got too big. Right? Volume only matters if you can actually handle the volume. That's not really the trigger, that was the result.
Yeah.
Big data platforms went, hey, by the way, we can also handle tremendous volume. Right? Because we discarded mountains of data before then. It was really variety that made the biggest difference. Like, that was the inflection point. When you were deciding, do I need a big data platform, if your variety was small and narrow and well handled by 4 platforms that you could then just query those 4 platforms independently and join the data, you didn't need a big data platform. But when your variety was so great that it was public and private and it was hugely messy, big data platforms were a big help. And I think the same thing can apply to AI, but it's dimensionality.
Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we think about human problems, think about cybersecurity, right? I need to do user behavior analytics and create a fingerprint of what is normal, what normal looks like, to then do anomaly detection, right? So I'm a person, and I'm going to design a SQL query to do that, right? Because this is not new. We've been trying to do this for years.
Yep.
How many dimensions can I look at in my SQL query?
Yeah.
How many dimensions can I, as a human, do the math on to determine what makes a fingerprint? The answer is about 10. We lose the thread. Humans lose the thread when there's more than 10 dimensions to something. We can't actually hold them combined together in our brains to form something cohesive when we exceed 10. I don't know why the limitation's 10, but the psychological limitation is about 10. AI, it's thousands, tens of thousands. The more dimensions I give AI, the better the result is I get from the AI. There's some nuance there again.
Yeah.
Right? But the reality is, the more data I give a human, the worse the human is at decision making. The more data I give AI, the better the AI is at making a decision. And so when we're thinking about, like, where's a good application, where's a poor application, dimensionality is a key place to start.
Now, it's an interesting lens. So, and I guess, unpack that a little bit further. So we'll go with the limit of 10 for the human dimensions, right? But there's user behavior analytics. We'll continue with that thread as well. But then there's you almost, to enable a human to be able to process that effectively, you have to separately introduce kind of rules or patterns that are relevant, that are defined elsewhere, but then also kind of stack those. So if you had 10, but one of them was rented a limit of 10, but let's say one of the behaviors was actually a representation of 5 distinct sequences.
Sure.
Right, you could do that, but to your point though,
but
then
they
you have
to
to do that. That compounds the work.
That are a yes or no.
Yeah,
right.
And you're still compounding all that work because
correct.
Yeah.
And the second it moves outside the boundary of what you've determined as a yes versus a no, you're effectively starting over.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like let's take a really easy use case. Right. So I have a salesperson that works out of Destin, Florida.
Okay.
Right.
Heard of it.
Heard of it?
Yeah.
And the salesperson frequently travels to China.
Yeah.
Right? Once a month, every month. So I fully expect that I will have IP addresses from Destin and IP addresses from China, and those will both be valid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they attach in the morning, right? Then an hour passes and they attach from China. An AI is instantly going to know that while it's okay that they attach from Destin and then China, there is no way to make the trip from Destin to China in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
A human, not necessarily going to know that.
Oh, well, that's kind of
Right.
the mental default to kind of the patterns, and they would potentially
Correct.
overlook those details,
Correct.
whereas an AI is going, well, those are the dimensions, right? Correct. That you're talking about.
Because it is yet another dimension.
Yeah.
And an AI is instantly going to know, well, it's 19 hours to fly to China, and therefore this is not remotely possible.
Yeah, it's such because AI we talked about ML and AI and their own biases, but it's a different set of biases, right?
Yeah.
The
it
human
absolutely
biases,
is.
like the anchoring, like we had that conversation, like that example, and you anchored me, intentionally or not, right? But I was anchored on locations, Destin, China. A machine's not going to overlook that subcontext.
Correct.
That might not have.
What's super interesting, too, is if you
Yeah.
combine the two, the bias of the machine also starts to look weird to a human as the human's bias looks weird to a machine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's the other thing we really need to think about is as we're designing these systems, all of our people are probably good at something. I was at GitHub Universe a few weeks ago, and I got really upset with them because they're like, we represent the developer. I'm like, yeah, but you're telling the developer the AI is effectively going to replace them. Right? AI can do all of these things. You're effectively going to be the caretaker of the application flow through a series of AI agents. Isn't that the wrong story, though? Right? Isn't the reality the developer is probably really, really, really good at one facet of development? Because they're passionate about it. They love it. That's why they got into it. That's why they work in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So shouldn't the message be, hey, just so you know, today, AI is not going to replace you. But today, how many of you are full-stack developers? Get a bunch of hands go up, because everybody wants to be a full-stack developer.
Yeah. No,
Cool. Keep your hands up.
It's the demand.
So there are a series of things within full-stack development. How many of you are masters of one of them? All the hands will stay up. How many of you are masters of all of them? Truthfully. Hands will all go down. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what AI means is you're now masters of all of them. AI doesn't need to do the one that you're good at or the two that you're really good at. If you're the greatest UX developer in the world, in your organization, on your team, doesn't matter. If that's what you're passionate about, continue to do that.
So then what's the difference then? I'm going to challenge that a little bit. What's the difference in, that developer who is the expert in that one domain, UX development, and or the master, but then AI is the master of all? I would argue
but
that...
it's not really the master of all,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the actual trick. It is simply better than average at all of it. And it gives you the freedom to hyper-focus on the thing that you're really good at and continue to develop that mastery and increase the depth of it and add the tribal knowledge that's actually reasonably hard for a machine to learn. The context that doesn't exist necessarily in the data or isn't obvious in the data, while the rest of it is compensated with elsewhere. And it rapidly increases your speed.
Exactly. It's superpowers, right? But it's and that's where I was kind of driving towards, is the original thinking, right? The original thoughts, original creation, net new, which is, that's, I believe, still very much a human superpower, right? Because what are we training training the models on, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Gen AI, machine learning.
Well, it doesn't matter,
Like
right?
Anything.
All
It
the
doesn't
models
matter.
we trained for
it's
the mean
something that
anyways.
we knew, right?
Right.
Yeah, and something
Right.
we
I
knew.
trained you on the mean of yesterday.
Exactly.
Right? So, like, ask it to write a story. The story is really bad, right? But because it doesn't know why anything works. It just knows these are the 10 top-selling books. So if I combine all 10 top-selling books and get one thing, right? What it actually gets is the mean of all of those and loses the beauty contained within each one because it doesn't understand the difference. It doesn't understand anything. It just has information. It doesn't have any knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's not that it context aware, but not with the intuition and kind of inferred logic that a human would have. Right?
Correct. But it's context aware in the way a mathematical equation is context aware.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's not context aware in the way a human thinks and believes and knows and understands and creates logical leaps to greatness, logical leaps to innovation. What it's really, really, really good at, though, is leveling yourself. Like when I do a talk,
Yep.
right? I do the entire talk, and I generally do it into a microphone, and then I run it through AI, and I go, give me a summary, give me a transcript, tell me what's missing. Like, if you're an expert in the field, what am I missing? If you're intermediate in the field, what am I missing? If you're brand new, what am I missing? If you know nothing, right? If this was an ELI 5, explain like I'm a 5-year-old, what is missing? Because all I can do is speak from my own perspective. I don't have any other perspective. But the audience doesn't have my perspective either. So shouldn't I aim to really hit what they're looking for?
Yeah.
And it gives me that instant feedback that says, hey, buddy, you're like all this could be great, but you're missing these 5 pieces of perspective. And I generally go, oh, like I live and exist in this, which is why you're asking me to speak, which means I'm also making assumptions because I'm human. Right? I don't think about those things. They're human. They're now part of my nature. And AI goes, hey, like you probably need to think about that. You're making assumptions that no one in the audience necessarily knows. So please, like let's add in a little bit more of that.
Well, I mean that goes back to exactly those dimensions that you're talking about. That it's not going to. It doesn't weight. I guess it could, but it's not necessarily weighting the importance and the assumptions, right? That's just your own bias, your own context.
Right. And it gives me the ability to go, well, actually, this audience is at this level, and therefore these 4 assumptions like these 4 things that you pointed out I'm not going to use, but these 3 are good. Like I don't use all of them. It may give me 20. But I can instantly go, and I can instantly read through it and go, oh, right, these 4 are actually important. I'm going to pull those 4 in.
But you have to do that, right? To the point about the original thinking, the not
Correct.
Okay,
because
well,
it doesn't understand, it doesn't understand why I said the things that I did. It doesn't understand what's actually important to me and why it's important to me. And maybe I could explain it, but it doesn't understand it. It still just goes, well, cool, you said this was important, so now I'm going to do this, right? It's like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, this starts to unpack. There's a ton of problems. I mean, there's so many things that are already kind of being solved. Just even the superpowers you noted, really, really interesting, really compelling. But focusing in on what makes us as humans special, unique, differentiated, that are going to be add an additional lens. And I've said it a couple times, but that original thought, that net new creation, and how do we do that? It's again, I'll put the product hat back on. It's starting with the problem that you want to solve.
It's being curious about a problem.
Exactly.
Like curiosity is what's missing.
Yeah, well said.
AI cannot be curious, and humans are curious. So here's the most important thing that I wish people understood. Like I actually think it should have been the first thing everybody heard when you walked in. We're going through technology unemployment like crazy. The number of people that I see that are losing their jobs, that are unemployed, and that are long-term unemployed, should create a level of simmering anxiety in the entire industry, and we should be talking about it. So I'm going to spend 30 seconds talking about it.
Sure.
Be curious. Otherwise, an AI can replace you.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not curious about what you do, and I have an AI that I can give orders to that will then automate a task and go run off and do it and return a result, and I know that result will never be the result of curiosity because it cannot be curious. But I also know that the employee that did that job was also not curious. What is the difference?
Yeah.
But if I know the employee is curious, then it has to augment that employee. It cannot replace them, because I would lose that curiosity, and curiosity is so incredibly, immeasurably valuable. Curiosity goes, hey, while these things look correct, they actually don't meet the intention. I'm going to go fix it.
Yeah, that speaks a lot to, and I want to go totally off topic. We'll stay on this general theme. But if I remember like when I was going through school, picking a majors, and the conversation is still going on, like what you do something you're passionate about. It's like, okay, well, what is that passion? Is that curiosity? I haven't really thought about it through this lens. So this is kind of a new topic to unpack and explore. But I think it is. There's like an intrinsic kind of human drive to understand, kind of unpack, create, and build upon and expand. And that could be art, that could be technology, that could be physics. Every domain has that kind of intrinsic curiosity where you're kind of unpacking the details other than just doing.
Couldn't it also, though, be, I'm curious what would make you think, like, I'm curious what makes you think that thing to do in the video game that you're playing and reaching out to me in customer service is interesting? Like, why would you try that? We didn't intend the game to be that way, but you're trying it and now you're getting an error? Right? Like, I'm curious what causes you to want to do that. Like we often speak of passion and curiosity as these big things. Like, I'm passionate about music, I want to go make music. No one makes music, no one makes money as a musician. Like, the number of people that make money as a percentage of people that think they're musicians is really small. Yeah. I want to write a book, I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about poetry, I'm passionate about art, I'm passionate about whatever. And you just kind of go, well, yeah, but I don't do that because I don't make any money doing that. And so instead I have to work in customer service. But you can also be passionate, you can also be curious about what causes the problem that someone reached out to you for, right? And the reality is the difference between passion and curiosity is passion is an addiction that you cannot shake. Curiosity is just the intrigue to understand what's at the other side of the door.
Do you think you need an element of passion to have that curiosity, though?
No, I mean...
I think you can learn it.
There's 1,000 things that I'm curious about that I have zero passion in whatsoever. Right? I have no passion whatsoever. I'm an analyst, and I run the research organization for the analyst company that I work for, which means every single report we produce flows through my desk. I am always curious if we did our job well. I am not passionate about every topic that we do.
Fair enough.
Right?
That would be remarkable.
That'd be bizarre. Who has time for that? We do 115, 120 reports a year. Right? But I'm absolutely curious about why that question was asked that way. I have no passion in it. Right? But I can be curious. Did we ask a question and did we answer a question? And why is it that answer? Why did we answer it that way, I should say.
But do you think that is sufficient for, certainly I think with today's state of, back to Gen AI topic, to differentiate from what a model might be able to provide? Or it maybe can answer that question for you?
Today, I think it is.
Yeah.
Right. Today, I think that delta is the missing link. That delta is the thing that makes humans irreplaceable. Because that curiosity helps stop mistakes that otherwise slip by and look innocuous.
It also helps identify the potential mistakes of an AI as well.
Yeah, it does.
Right? And that's why we still need the human in the loop, because at some level is just that, many different words and terms for it, but that sanity check, like, let's look at this thing, this artifact that created, just do a gut check, sanity check. It seemed right. I spent too much time in Excel in a prior life, right? But it would be a sanity check on the numbers, like something is off, and it was like an intuition. And maybe I was curious, right?
Instant.
Now, granted, that's probably a bad example because it's numbers and a.
It's actually not a bad example, right? I watched a demo from a cybersecurity company, and they were showing kind of their investigative interface, where previously you had to use like a type of SQL. Something that looked kind of SQL related to do your inquiries, right? And so then they created a Gen AI interface for that, where it would auto generate and return the thing. And they were doing a race. Here's there's 9 cards, pick 3 kind of thing. Yep. And then our expert will run through the old interface, and you, the person who's never seen our interface at all, will use the Gen AI, and we'll see who comes up with the answer first. 2 out of 3, it was great. But the third one was something along the lines of how many failed attempts have there been to log in as administrator to the computers in the network? Mm-hmm. And it returned a result that, I don't have the exact number, but it returned a result that was like 83. To which everybody just went, like record scratch, no.
Yeah.
Because that happens all the time. That happens continuously. And I actually think it was the admin shares, which happens all the time. It happens constantly. Most of the time it's denied, right? Like there are services that just bang that stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that happens, right? And the expert who took 5 times as long returned an answer that was like 25,860, which was the right answer. Mm-hmm. Person who'd never seen the interface before, though, may not have a clue that that's not a reasonable answer.
And they just say, well, 83.
Right, but if they're not curious, if they're curious, they go, 83 seems low. Mm. Like, I've got 20,000 computers. Why do I care about 83 instances? It's not 4. 4 could be really problematic.
Yeah.
Purposeful. 83 might not be problematic. If I'm running a script and I've got 20,000 machines, it should be 20,000. Assuming it never happens, right? Like there's like someone who's curious would go, okay, why did it come up with 83? And then you would almost immediately go, oh yeah, no, that was wrong. It made an assumption that was untrue. Let's go back and reframe the question, mm-hmm. right? But you have to have that curiosity. You must maintain that curiosity.
Do you think we'll get to, do you think we'll come to a point in the very near future where
AI has curiosity
can do that curiosity and kind of sanity check in that use case? It's very contained,
it's okay.
But
but let me ask a question the other way around.
Sure.
Should it?
No,
right. If curiosity is the thing that enables us to be productive members of society, we're not likely to approve AGI in any. Not AGI. What is the minimum income? UBI.
Yeah.
Right, we're not likely to approve UBI in any short term, and I don't know about you, but I don't think we need, we got 330 million people living in the U.S. Let's just take the U.S. Mm-hmm. We don't need 100 million unemployed people.
No, it's
right.
The whole impact on socioeconomics and
that's a different podcast. Someone else has that podcast. Right? But like we don't need to generate that. So when we're thinking about ethical uses of AI. Mm-hmm. Maybe curiosity is a place where we need to go, like there's a line there, we don't step over that line quite yet. We haven't solved the problem that would create yet, so maybe when we're designing our ethical AI, we need to go, you know what, it can't be curious. Right? So it can't kill humans, it can't cause harm to what are the 3 rules of robotics?
You
know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
3
about.
rules of robotics.
Yep.
Maybe the 4th rule is it also cannot be curious. We haven't solved that problem, it can't be curious. We need at least UBI. Right.
Yeah,
I haven't thought about it at depth, but
yeah, no, it's an interesting topic to explore, like especially the curiosity. But in that instance, it could, it doesn't even have to be AI that's doing an inference on is 83 reasonable. I mean, that's just a basic statistical analysis, right? Sure. So there's this area of okay, well, what are the other maybe conventional mechanisms that we can layer on top of AI? As our own guardrails that are deterministic, they're absolute. Statistics is an absolute. I'm never going to say that, but
I mean, there are little white lies, there are big black lies, and then there are statistics. Right?
No, but in that instance, okay, well, I've got this size of a deployment. 83 is about 8th percentile or whatever it happens to be. Okay, that's an interesting check. That doesn't necessarily have to be a curious AI. That can be a curious human saying, well, I don't want to have to look at each of these, so just do this analysis a whole bunch of time and then flag the, whatever, the anomalies, right? That are, 3 standard deviations from the mean or 2 standard deviations, whatever it happens to be.
But that is part of what we're trying to solve with agentic AI.
It is.
Agentic AI is effectively using AIs to check other AIs, other pieces of the response from an AI so that we can increase the efficacy and reduce the hallucinations, right? And so in that case, you might use agentic AI, right, to refeed, like reframe the prompt with a slightly different intent to attempt to get the same answer to then go, cool, well, you didn't get, like, why are these answers different? And then have another AI analyze why the answers are different to try to find the delta, and return back something to the user that says, even if it's just question unclear, ask again later. Like the magic 8-ball would be useful in that case, right? Yeah. More useful than an answer that's wrong by 3 digits.
But I think this is where it's important, though, to come back to the problem you're trying to solve. Do you need another AI to answer that question?
Well, no, a curious human would answer that question for you.
Yeah, or right? Maybe create a basic program or a basic script that'll
kind
of do that on its own. Right?
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's
right. There's a SQL interface that already answers it.
Yeah,
you just have to know SQL.
Sure. Right? And you could leverage another tool.
Also, it's way cheaper to run the SQL query by like exponential levels than it is the cost of the AI execution.
And so being mindful of that, and this is like beyond AI, but technology for technology's sake, or AI for the sake of AI is, we're not at that. I don't think we're at that phase of the cycle of AI yet. There's a ton of capital going into the space, ton of innovation happening in the space, and it's very much let's see the art of the possible. Like we got a preview of it, and that's expanding. But let's there's as the kind of practical applications start to emerge, then we've already seen some of the costs come down, but that's those other practical elements that can get omitted early on in a cycle like this will start to not practical, but
for sure.
There's other elements.
But you're touching on something that is really interesting, which is the difference between I make money on AI and I make money with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Technology vendors make money on AI.
Mm-hmm.
Just by integrating AI into the platform, especially if it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm publicly traded. It doesn't matter if I'm going after VC funding.
Doesn't matter.
Right? I get more money. The street views me favorably if I'm publicly traded, so the potential is for my stock to go up.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost guaranteed that if I don't do it and everybody else does, my stock will go down.
Yep.
Right? And VCs will show up if I've done the buzzwordy thing.
Yep.
Right? It's the way that works. That does not mean people that make money with AI by using the results of the AI should be doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's a really distinct difference. Like technology for technology's sake is what tech vendors do. It is not what we should do as businesses that leverage technology as a tool.
Well, exactly. Ultimately, how is a technology vendor generating value, creating value? It's leveraging technology to solve a customer problem, right?
Sure, but legitimately, there are no easy problems. We solved all the easy ones.
Oh yeah, no,
right?
They keep getting harder.
So they're all really hard. So you want to start a tech company, and you want to solve a hard problem, but you also need to eat.
Yeah.
And pay your mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you really have to kind of thread that fine line between doing the thing that's the hotness so that VCs are interested, so they give you enough money so that you can get to the point where you're solving the complex problem and also maintaining enough momentum in the social space, right? So people are talking about you positively so that you can continue to solve the hard problem, right? So you actually have the two jobs.
Yeah, it's non-binary. It's
correct.
It's
correct.
Completely
And it's not
non-binary.
like anybody goes. Very few people, but it's not really like anybody goes, no, I'm really just here to get money from VCs, have fun for 3 years, and then close this bitch down.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody starts from the perspective of, there's a really hard problem that I've identified, and I want to solve it. They all have good intentions, and then you're faced with, I have to do the good intentions, but also this other thing so that I can get funding.
Well, yeah, no.
Because it takes a long time.
Look, when I was in that space for a little bit, it was interesting, and like hearing all the pitches. It was on the, we were focused on security, but it was on the tail end of the second hype in blockchain. It was blockchain, and then that became a bad word rather than an asset. It was a liability.
I mean, for a reason other than no one ever made any money with blockchain except people selling blockchain?
It could be something to do with that. And so, but there were instances where the kind of core technology had some relevant applications, and then so it was reframed as, distributed ledger, but it was kind of buried in an appendix of a pitch deck. Like, well, how are you actually doing this? Well, we have a immutable ledger, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, we all know what that means, but all right.
We all know what that means, but we understand it's not.
But you're not using the buzzword, which means you may have actually thought about it enough to use it for something that it's good for. Blockchain is phenomenally good where it's really useful.
Yeah, exactly the scope.
Right.
But doing it for the sake of doing it.
For the sake of doing it is terrible. It's the worst technology in the world.
Yeah, and that's that.
So bad.
You're right. That's why it's a non-binary world. We're we're creating technology for the sake of technology, but then when that's product market fit fundamentally, right?
For sure.
When those align with a tangible problem that the market needs solved and addressed is when, okay, let's double down, let's refine, let's improve. And it's going to be a wild journey, just the scope of the innovation that's happening in AI, how that all unfolds. Excited to be in the middle of it and in the industry we're in.
For sure.
Excited to see where it goes and look back in 5-10 years and either say, yep, I had it, or I did not see that coming.
Well, I do this a lot.
Yeah.
So if I was to bet, I think you're going to be far more right than you are wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So on that note, I have a lot of AI conversations and I hear a lot of noise. Right. And the most important thing for customers is being able to understand the difference. And it's a really hard thing to do because there's a lot of people that are just interested in selling their AI mastery. Right. 3 days after the first ChatGPT 3 public interface was available, 700,000 people on LinkedIn changed their title to ChatGPT Master. Right? It hasn't really slowed down. Talking to you, I don't know that either one of us would call ourselves AI masters, but we are proper skeptics who've spent a lot of time in the space. So for customers that want to learn more and want to chat with you about it, how do they get a hold of you?
They can look me up on LinkedIn. It's a great resource. Check that regularly. They're also welcome to...
How do they find you on LinkedIn?
They can find me Ryan Steeb and work for DTEX Systems.
Awesome.
Can search for me on there and be happy to reach out. Happy to have a
Do you have a
conversation.
blog or anything on DTEX?
Not at this time. Relatively new to the DTEX family, and loving every minute of it.
That's
Fantastic
awesome.
people, and people is, for the different journeys I've had, the great people is everything. And at the beginning of our conversation, being able to meet people in person at an event like this is.
Okay.
We're
Are you
humans.
on the event circuit? Should we expect to see you at RSA and Black Hat?
I will be back on the event circuit, so
Awesome.
I will see you there.
Awesome. It'll be a lot of fun. Well, with that, this has been another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. Please like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you on our next episode. Thanks, and have a lovely night.